Since the last time we met, we did have a very successful town meeting where the town overwhelmingly supported the project. Town meeting overwhelmingly supported the project, so we're very grateful all the work all the committee members did to reach out to your town meeting members and get this project over the finish line. Some of the recent updates we had, and one of the main purposes of today's meeting is to introduce the town's project manager on the project. We went through the procurement process for this, and we have one selected, and they are here with us today. But I guess the first order of business is to approve meeting minutes, and everybody have a chance to review those?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I sent Kate a note. I was in attendance, but not recorded as being in attendance, so a little update.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
All right, all those against? Motion passes. Okay, so at this point, I will turn it over to our owner's project manager, CHA. They will be the town's representative managing the project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave. I don't know who's going to start.
Yeah, I'll start. We'll introduce the people that are in person, then Joe, you can introduce yourself. So my name is David Hurley. I'll be the lead project manager from CHA, working with the town and the committee and KBA to help facilitate the process from here on out. As we develop the construction drawings and go out to bid, and then ultimately having construction oversight and administration when we get to that stage. So really excited to be part of the team, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on this project. With that, I'll hand it over to Connor.
Thanks, Dave. My name is Connor Sullivan. I'll be the assistant project manager for the town, for the team here, as well as for the department. And I'm very excited to get this project going. Joe?
Thanks, Connor. I'm Joe Sullivan. I'll be serving as the project executive. I'll be meeting with our team internally day to day, and I'm actually looking forward to this project. Burlington deserves this, and we're looking forward to getting it not only through the completion of the design, but actually out to bid. So thank you for having us.
All right, thanks, Joe. So with introductions there, we just wanted to get going with the current project status, and probably the most important thing is that we've been doing a lot of work on where to locate the police station temporarily while we do construction, and we do believe that we have a viable plan to relocate the police station down to the Vinebrook treatment plant by utilizing the inside of that building, as well as renting some trailers for various aspects of it. Our architect's been putting in a lot of work on that, so Kevin, before I get to Kevin, this will require a vote at town meeting. So there is an article at September's town meeting, which essentially is just asking the town's permission to temporarily use this facility as a police facility. When the town originally obtained these lands in the 1950s, they were obtained for water purposes, and town council advised us that we should ask town meeting for permission to temporarily change the use of the facility for a police use. With that, I'll turn it over to Kevin, and you can maybe talk a little bit about the temporary facilities.
Thanks, Paul. As you guys know, we've been charged with taking a look at the water treatment facility over on Vinebrook to see the availability or the applicability for the building to house the department for approximately 2 years during the construction of the new building. We went out there initially back in probably June, preliminary, did a quick space plans analysis, reworked the program with the chief to see how much square footage we needed. It was determined that we had plenty of square footage within the building. So at that point, we started doing some we started doing preliminary floor plan layouts and organization, similar to what we did with the programming for the new building. We pared down that program to only those items for the department's needs for the next 2 years in the temporary location. And we came up with a floor plan that we all think is a viable solution to what their needs are going to be. Yesterday, as actually myself, another member of our office, and the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection engineers from Garcia, Galaska, D'Souza, our engineers, did an extensive field review of the building. We did a bunch of dimensions. They reviewed all of the capacities and systems that are out there, and pleased to report that the building is fully sprinkled. It appears that there's sufficient capacity to change the use group to a B-type use group for the building code. The electric service is more than sufficient for what we need to do. The emergency generator appears to be of a sufficient size that will provide emergency power for the building for the next 2 years. Mechanically is probably one of the bigger question marks because there's not an awful lot of fresh air and air conditioning within the water treatment part of the building itself. The good news is that we have plenty of room to put those units as need be. We're talking about doing little mini split systems to be able to get air conditioning and heating in there. We've got locations in the kind of the very end of the building is basically a giant louver room. If we need to put some units in there, I'm trying to stay away from putting anything on the roof so we don't have to deal with any roof penetrations. We kind of schematically talked about how we would get from point A to point B with ductwork if we needed to go that route, which is all readily achievable. So all things considered, the project is probably a pretty easy, I don't want to say pretty easy. It will fit, the program will fit easily into the existing building.
Kevin, can I just add something that the goal is for us to do as little amount of work as possible on that facility because it's not going to be used for anything else after. If we're going to have some sort of long-term use, we can think probably a little harder of exactly what we're doing. And if there's some facilities that may cost too much to rehab a portion or potentially for bathrooms or dispatch, then we may potentially just attach the trailers right on the site. I don't know if anybody's been there, but if you go around the back, lends itself perfectly to have the trailers. There's a nice flat grassy area right up against the building, so with an entrance right there too. So there's an opportunity to do that too. But just so everybody knows, that's the goal, is to try to come nowhere near that $2 million we budgeted for. The $2 million was sort of worst case scenario, having to lease a bunch of trailers, lease some land from somebody to drop those trailers, or having to lease and fit out some commercial space. So those were the sort of the higher end where we set the budget and it was going to come to.
I have a question on that. So what is the status of the decommissioning of that plant, and is that in process, and how is that going to work out?
Yeah, the decommissioning is basically a paperwork process and the disconnecting of pipes from the water supply
Okay.
system. So Public Works has that going on.
Has Board of Health been, have you discussed with Board of Health how that would work?
I'm not sure if they have a role in that, Liz.
Okay, I'm just saying, just because I might want to check with them, just,
Yep, we'd be happy to do that. Like I say, we've been in the process of decommissioning the plant, aside from this.
for a long time, okay. They
And,
might not just they might just not be up to speed on what you guys have done so far.
okay,
So
Thank you.
that's just make sure that,
yep, absolutely. And I guess the only thing I'll add to what John said is, these facilities will be pretty Spartan facilities, and the chiefs have had conversation with the officers, and they are willing to deal with less than optimal facilities for a short period of time for, the prize at the end of the rainbow. So that discussion has been had, and by all means, like I say, we want to make these as livable spaces as possible, but given the fact that we don't have a future use for this facility, and it's going to be taken offline, we don't want to invest a lot of money into the building at the same time, so.
Paul, will there be signage in front of the existing station indicating the relocation?
Yeah, we had a conversation about that. It'll be more than just that. It'll be signage, it will be communicating to the community, we'll be updating all of the GPS apps that people use to get around to let them know that the temporary location is. So if somebody looks it up on their Waze app or their Google directions, it'll bring up the right location. So we're going to put a lot of thought into that, just so that people, in the event that there's an emergency and they need to go to the police station, that they'll know where it is. So.
One more thing to add, Dr. Sorgini, on that question. The OPMs could talk for a couple hours on that. I've witnessed it on exactly that, because the movement of a police station isn't easy with the E911 services and handling all that. And they've had both OPM and architect have had extensive experience doing both.
Great.
So the call center, call-in is going to go over to the new building?
Yep.
And all the data, the networking, the servers, all that stuff is moving also? Okay.
Good news for us is our fiber network extends to that building already. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of work that has to happen, but it's a little bit less of a lift.
Paul, has there ever been any additional conversation about combining the call center that was had a couple of years ago while this is all going on, or?
No, that hasn't been pursued any further. I think it was looked at, and it seems to make sense. But as a project, in order to combine the dispatch centers, we would actually have to add additional personnel, and that, sometimes can be a difficult conversation with town meeting. So it's in the back of our mind, but two separate unions, a lot of logistics there in order to combine a dispatch center. So it was discussed probably about 5 years ago and hasn't proceeded much further than that. Barbara?
Well, we're expecting to have our drawings ready to go for a separate bid package, probably the end of, towards the middle of November, so that we would be anticipating that we'd try to award a contract for the construction first weekend of January, giving them about a 6-month window to get things built. That would allow about a month and a half for them to get transitioned over to the new position, the new location, before we would receive bids and start tearing down their existing station. So
They probably won't move until next year.
Next
probably
summer,
June, July-ish
Thank you.
timeframe.
Just a note from BCAT, if anyone's on the WebEx, could you mute yourself, because they're getting a lot of background noise on the background.
Any other questions on temporary facilities or anything anyone wants to talk about on that? All right. Kevin or Dave, I'm not sure who's up next on construction drawings on the next item.
I'll go. We've primarily focused our efforts on the task at hand of getting the new, we're calling it the swing space drawings rolling. We've started all of our drawings. There's a couple little things that came up that in our visit yesterday that I want to take another harder look that I'm hoping to have the middle of next week drawings off to the engineers so that they can start their drawings. But we have started to develop the conceptual drawings from the new building into our system, so that we're starting to build the file structure for that. That's lagging a little bit, but in truth be told, we got to probably 75% schematic design during the study phase. So the plans are pretty well set. There's a little square footage thing that we're going to be working with the chief when we did the final design of the new station to make it look more like the existing station. We picked up a little bit of extra square footage that we've got to kind of do an analysis of how do we incorporate that into the floor plan now. Primarily, it's going to be probably the chief's suite, and one of the traffic, I think, is in the back side of the building now, that we may have a little bit more room to give them a little bit more elbow space. Keeping in mind that we do have a budget, that square footage is money, that we'll be doing kind of an analysis on what that may or may not impact. But the rest of the drawings moving forward for the new station are in really pretty good shape. We're anticipating finishing the schematic design portion for that building in parallel with the swing space. I think our schedule says that we should have schematic design done the end of November, or beginning of November. So we're actually tracking right on time for that as well.
And I'll just add, we'll be establishing a weekly design check-in meeting, CHA and KBA and a few folks from the committee and the department, just to make sure we're staying on track and advising on any potential solutions or options that may arise.
All right. I guess the next item up, sorry, Barbara.
Is there a new rendering for the outside of the building?
Nothing since the schematic, since,
So we don't know which plan you're moving forward with? Because there were a couple of different directions that
Yeah.
you were looking at. Have you chosen one?
I believe there was, the desired result was the one for the more closely resembled the existing building. is what I understood was what the recommendation in this, as the result of the study was, that was the imagery that we were going with.
Right, so the reason I brought this up is because when that was presented, I don't want to speak for anyone else, my response, and I think there were some others who responded the same way, was that we liked that it did mimic the Grandview Farm building, but that it was kind of a big, giant block. And there are ways, as you know, as an architect, to make it look a little more inviting and less monolithic.
Yes,
So is that in the works?
it will be, yes. We can, during schematic design and phase and the design development phase are when those types of things start to get refined. I had forgotten that there was a discussion on trying to break the scale down a little bit, so it wasn't just a long
Right.
150-foot length of building that just rows of windows and sloped roof.
Right.
That will be part of the evolution of the design from conceptual through
Okay.
design development and schematic design, then design development. Hopefully, we should have those types of studies will be done in the next couple of months, so that by the time we turn the corner at, say, January, when we're starting into the real hardcore construction documents of dotting all the Ts, dotting all the Is, crossing all the Ts, all of those decisions have been made, but yes, from now till then, we'll be starting to work on those elements that will help to make it look the way that it really wants to in the end.
So Kevin, it may make sense for you to bring back that original concept to this group at the next meeting, just
Yep.
so that they can throw some ideas at you of the types of things that they're thinking about in terms of breaking up.
Yeah, and we'll make a first attempt at a couple of schemes on how we could break the facade up a little bit, so you can see the beginning, what we kind of started with at the study, and then some options to go forward with. And if we find pieces of each, or one that happens to work for everybody, then great, but we can then start cobbling together a final design that we can incorporate into the packages.
So it sounds like, I wanted to present this idea, and I don't know if that's going to work with your schedule, but I have been hearing consternation from people, and overall, everyone's very supportive, but there are individual people, especially those who live in the area, that are concerned about the removal of trees and how far that will extend into the neighboring property and things like that. I was going to suggest that because we have this opportunity coming up in November when more people in town than ever any other day are all going to be at the high school for the election, it would maybe be great to have a table there outside the polling place that shows people what we're working on, so that we'll be able to reach a huge number of people that one day and explain to them what direction we're heading in, and hopefully put some of those fears to rest. I don't know if your renderings will be ready by then, though.
If that's a goal, we'll put that on the faster pace, on the faster track. to
It's just a
results.
suggestion. It's not up to me to decide, but I think it would be a great opportunity to present it to the community.
I think it's a great idea, and I have trees on my list of things to talk about, so.
Okay.
Could I just make a quick statement? I think any type of public outreach is a great thing. It'll take any animosity out of someone once the documentation is provided. But the other part of it that I just want to make sure that we implement is that each step of the way through each phase, I want to make sure that the committee and/or the town representatives who make the decisions vote to move forward on a particular design. It was a little concerning to me that, there were 2 or 3 designs proposed, and it wasn't 100% sure what design was being moved forward with. I just as soon have it in the minutes, what particular design and the vote that was taken. That way it takes any misconceptions out of which design we're actually looking at moving forward.
Thanks, Joe. Fortunately, most of the designs were very similar, I think, with slight differences, so.
Yeah, I think what Kevin may need to do is just label them, it could be R1, R2, R3, just so we have it documented. I don't disagree with you, they can be modified just slightly, but it just takes the curse out of not knowing 100%. That's all.
All right, anything else on that? Okay, next up is local board approvals. So I guess what my suggestion on this one is to have CHA and KBA, attend one of our development coordination meetings, preferably as soon as possible. That's a meeting where we have all our relevant land use departments meet, and we'll be able to talk about the project, and they'll be able to tell you from their department's perspective what is the path and what approvals are needed and what permitting is needed from them, so.
Yep. So if you guys want to email planning@burlington.org, we can get you on that. I think the next one should be next Tuesday, beginning at 9:30 is usually when we have them in this room. So just email us, we'll get you on the schedule, and I think it'll be super helpful for everybody involved.
And it will probably make sense to make several return trips to
Yeah,
that
of
group
course.
because it'll just help us along, because there'll be no surprises along the way from any of the departments, so.
Okay, that's Tuesday at 9?
Yep.
All right, next up is project schedule. Who's gonna talk about that one?
So Kevin, at this stage, I think it might be more appropriate for you to share the schedule that you shared with us.
Yep.
We haven't had a chance to really dive into it, other than reviewing what you shared with us, and what we spoke about last week. But as Kevin alluded to, full steam ahead with putting together the temp facility plans with the goal of getting that out by roughly around Thanksgiving time, if I'm not mistaken, and receiving bids at the end of December, making a decision and awarding a bid in early January, and starting the construction of the temp facility in parallel with putting the construction documents together with the goal of getting that out to bid around June. Looking to award a general contractor a couple weeks after that in the summertime, in July, and, as we're putting that bid out, we're moving the facility, moving the department, and, beginning with demolition and site clearing shortly after awarding the bid. So Kevin, if you want to take it away from there.
Kevin, before you start, just one more thing, just to point out, is that the OPM was just awarded the contract a week and a half ago. Ink's not even dry yet, so they haven't really had a chance to have their kickoff meetings with the architect, but we do expect at the next meeting for this type of stuff to have a more official type of, anybody that's been on a building committee is used to seeing a schedule that has milestones on it and deliverables and things like that. And when we talk about the budget, for there to be an actual document that you can see and track over time. But like I said, the purpose of this meeting was to get an introduction and a status update, but you can expect these things to be more formalized moving forward.
Thanks, John.
So what we did was,
Agreed.
so what I did was I pulled together a schedule for the overall project itself, going through the next 4 or 5 phases of the project, starting off with schematic design, which is when we take the study and start incorporating into a real construction set of drawings. We kind of started it on August 1st. We were giving it about a 3-month duration. We've got some very preliminary milestone dates that we're looking to do. So like the middle of October, I'm looking to get my package off to my cost estimator, getting it back in 10 days after that, doing a quick reconciliation. Then by the end of October, being able to present to you folks a reconciled budget and a whole package of schematic design, which is advancing the study to the next level of construction documents. Pending approval of that, we're anticipating going directly into design development phase, which is when we start to really look at interior design elements, exterior design elements, site elements, all of those types of things to kind of bring the project forward, bringing everything up at the same time. At that point, we'll start to have actual drawings from all of my consultants. So we'll have mechanical ductwork plans, we'll have some floor plans with locations of where outlets are, all of those types of things. Starting to develop that for the next 3 months after that. At the end of design development is when we typically start doing the site permitting. The drawings need to be at a fairly advanced state for it to be submitted for site plan review. So we're anticipating probably around the beginning of February that we'll be ready to start making those types of meetings with the appropriate site planning groups in town, so that we make sure that we've got CONSCOM, we've got planning, zoning, the business development group. All of those bodies that need to have approvals and input on the site itself, formal presentations to take action on. We put those at the same time that the rest of our team is finishing up the construction documents. at the end of the design development.
Kevin, can I just intervene for 1 second? Is it possible, and I can appreciate, your detail that how you'd like to pursue, but I'd like to at least see if we could do a courtesy review. And the reason why I say that is that it gives us the opportunity to get a little bit of insight maybe from some of the boards that we can implement into the drawings instead of giving them a more complete set and then having to make changes to it. I mean, I think if we engage them earlier than just the submittal process through a courtesy review, it's going to go a long way. And I'd like to see if we could do that sooner than later before February. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess
Planning board concurs.
building on the previous subject of being invited to the Tuesday morning meeting with is it an all departments meeting or?
Development coordination.
Development coordination meeting. We would start meeting with them ahead of time, Joe, to make sure that not only are we hearing from the site people, we're hearing from the fire department, we're hearing from the building inspector, we're hearing from the Board of Health, so that all those folks that have a stake in the building will have their say formally, so that as we're developing the project, before it ever gets to them in a formal manner, we've already kind of dotted the i's and crossed the t's with each of those groups, so that when we make.
No, I'm not saying you're not going to do that. I just think that, the planning board, zoning, conservation, you'll have your drawings filed enough along over the next, 6 to 8 weeks to be able to at least do a courtesy review. And you'll be shocked at how much input they give you. I'm not saying that they're not looking at incomplete drawings, but they'll just give you some courtesy points that they see that might help you with your design as you move forward to the completion. That's all.
Joe, we won't be shocked at the input. We're expecting it.
Barbara's already has some for us.
So as we get past the design development phase and it's kind of the permitting is starting up, we also, because of the size of the project required by statute, being over a $10 million project, it's a pre-qualification process that we need to pre-qualify all the general contractors and all the file subtrades. So we'll be looking to set up a pre-qualification committee that will put out RFPs, review the SOPs when there's SOQs when they come back, make recommendations, grade them, and only those general contractors and file submitters that are pre-qualified will be permitted to bid on the project. That's a fairly involved process. It takes a little bit of time, so we like to start that when we get into design, when we get into contract documents. It's a 4-month window to do the construction documents that will be running in parallel with the pre-qualification. Then we'll move into, after we get done with design development, we've got about 4 months to get everything else wrapped up. We'll be doing a 60% or 75%, whatever we agree is the appropriate time to do a final estimate, cost estimate, to make sure that we're good, that we don't have any surprises pricing, because we are now talking 9 months or so from now. Who knows what November's going to bring for the change in economy and administration possibly, but give us a better finger on the pulse of what the economy's doing, so that when we go out to bid, we know we're in a good situation and still have time to make some adjustments. During CD's phase, we'll also create a list of value engineering items that may or may not become, if we're concerned with the budget, it may become add or deduct alternates depending on the strategy we want to take for pricing. With the anticipation that we go out to bid sometime around the very first week of June next year. Project this size, we typically like to give the general contractors about 5 to 6 weeks to bid it. We like to give the file sub-bidders 3 to 4 weeks to bid it, with the anticipation that we'll receive bids on or around the second or third week in June, or July, sorry, towards the end of July, with the expectation that we go to make a recommendation, you folks make a recommendation to the select board or whoever is the awarding authority, that we enter into contract with the lowest qualified, pre-qualified bidder. Figuring that they would be able to get a notice to proceed sometime on or about the first week or so of August, and then continue on for a 20-month of construction with another couple of months of project closeout. So there's a lot to do. The schedule that I've put together is comfortable, assuming a normal flow of information, assuming that there's no real surprises as we get into the geotechnical investigation of the site, hazmat investigation of the site, all of those things, assuming those all come as we expect them to be pretty clean, things should move right along. But there is a little bit of time, or what's called in the schedule is a little bit of float to make things, if things have to expand a little bit. But but the primary goal here is to make sure that we give the contractor sufficient time to get the foundations in before the winter hits a year and a half from now. That's kind of the driving element on this project. As everyone knows, school projects, it's Labor Day weekend is the hard deadline. You got to get kids in the school. Here, we want to try and avoid what's called winter conditions, that they don't have to thaw the ground and incur the expense to get footings and foundations in before the frost hits. So that's kind of how this was built, moving backwards, and it actually worked out that there's a couple of months of float in there to make things work. So we're pretty comfortable and confident that we can meet the schedule.
All right, so perhaps for the next meeting, once CHA has a chance to sit down with you, we can have a printed schedule for the committee. And I think that goes the same for the budget. There's been no changes to the total project budget, and I don't think we have anything significant to update on budget at this point, other than we hope to at least save a few dollars by using the Vinebrook versus what the alternatives would have been. So perhaps at the next meeting also, we can, when you guys have had a chance to talk, we can have an updated budget document. I know you guys have different formats and things like that you want to share with us as well. So the next up on the agenda was general administration. John, who's going to talk on this one? Dave?
Yeah, so I just, want, as more of an introductory meeting, wanted to get an idea of the meeting cadences of this committee. I understand you guys have been meeting on an as-needed basis. Wasn't sure if we were going to start meeting monthly or keep it as needed for the time being until we really ramp things up with the construction drawings. So just wanted to get a general understanding from the committee about that cadence. I mentioned earlier that we're going to be setting up a weekly meeting with KBA and the chief and maybe a few other select members of the team to work through the design and review that, make sure that we're keeping progress with the schedule. And lastly, I would, if someone could, I don't know if John or Paul, just get a list of all the committee members here. A lot of beautiful faces in front of me. I just want to make sure I can put a face to the name so that, we can build that rapport as we move forward.
We maybe do an introduction, go around since you guys are new to the.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would
I think
help.
that might be,
Just-
so I'll start. I'm Liz Von Metro, I'm the planning director for the town of Burlington.
I'm Kate, I work at the police station, I do your minutes.
I'm Barbara LaRue, I'm a member of the planning board.
I'm Joe Renzella, part of the police planning board.
Bob Hogan, just a citizen.
Mike Espejo, I'm on the select board.
Mike Hardy on Ways and Means Committee.
I'm Manny Suffredini, a community member.
Bob Kirshner, Deputy Chief of the Police Department.
Kevin Witzel with Castle Blues, your architects.
Tom Brown, Chief of Police.
Paul Sagarino, town administrator.
Jim Tigas, Select Board.
All right, well, I appreciate those introductions.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah, so again, and the last piece, Connor, you can probably speak to some of the tools that we try to help implement.
Yeah, with your hiring of CHA, we bring a handful of tools with us to help mitigate some of the risks involved with the construction. One being the RACI chart, so that stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, and Informed. That's a tool, it's almost like a chart, I wish I had one in front of me right now, that lists different parties within the actual project and what their responsibility is moving forward through the project. Whether it's documentation, or even any kind of, yeah, exactly, any kind of task at hand. We want to make sure that everybody on the team is on the same exact page. That way there's no questions asked. You're responsible for A, B, and C, and we're going to hold you to it. We want to make sure everything goes fluently throughout this whole process. Another one's the purchase and delivery schedule. That's also another tool that we can track lead time of items. We can do early packages, early purchase packages, and we want to hold the contractor responsible for whatever date they give us. We're gonna check on that weekly, daily, as much as we need to make sure that we're getting the product at a decent time for the fluency of this project. So.
Yeah, make sure that we're identifying long lead items and when submittals need to be submitted and reviewed and approved by, so that we can maintain the schedule. So, as we look through the drawings and the constructability and identify items, we'll work with KBA, to identify, which items we think are going to be long lead and make sure we make those a priority as we get into construction. Yeah, those generally, I just wanted to get an idea of, the typical cadence and when we'll be meeting with this folks, and if there's a set time or anything of that nature.
I mean, we were kind of on a monthly schedule before summer hit, right?
Somewhat of a monthly schedule, yeah. I just want to make sure that we have something to talk about if we get everybody together on their lunch break, so. So I guess we'll have to feel it out a little bit over the next few weeks, and then I think that once the project really gets going, we'll be able to have a good idea of how often we should meet, whether it's every 2 weeks or once a month.
I think initially, just as needed, having your meetings as needed.
Yep.
There's nothing worse than having a meeting and you really don't have anything to cover. But clearly, I think once, as Paul pointed out, once this gets rolling, there's going to be a need to have a regular schedule, designated time for meetings, so that people can build it into their own schedules.
Absolutely. And as far as processing of invoices, is that something that the committee would be voting on those invoices, or is that a separate procedure through?
I think we would be reporting them to the committee,
Giving us that,
a
yeah,
listing,
monthly update of-
but
right.
the accounting function will handle the actual processing
Okay.
of the bills.
I know that some building committees like to vote on the invoices before they get processed, so just want to make sure that I understand the facilitation of that. Okay? Joe, do you have anything to add from a general administrative standpoint?
No, I'm just looking forward to moving forward with the project. I mean, ultimately, we'll meet with KBA this coming week, and we'll get, a detailed schedule as far as, what we're providing for deliverables. And then we can actually sequence where we're at with that. Additionally, I want to make sure that, once we start to format a budget, I want to make sure we're capturing all of the hard costs and soft costs associated with that. And we may have to meet with the chief in their department just to kind of go over, what they're planning on bringing over versus what we're going to have to buy new. I just want to make sure we identify all those items.
All right, anything else on that, or schedule, or anything of that nature? Okay. We had an item here for new business. I guess I'll just start off with my comment on this one, and then we can go around the room. But my new business was, and CHA hasn't had a chance to hear this, but it's a pretty sensitive site we're working on. Had really good support from the neighbors to the police station. Their biggest concern was maintaining a grove of trees that we have there to provide separation from the station. I think Kevin's original design only minimally infringes upon the grove of trees. So we really want to have extensive conversations before any of the trees are touched over there. So just so Kevin already knows this, but, we just want to make sure that there's no confusion or misinterpretation there. We don't want to show up to an empty field someday because of a miscommunication. So that's going to be paramount for us in terms of maintaining good relations with the neighbors in the area. And with that up, I guess, does anyone else have anything they want to add under new business to discuss? Barbara?
Thank you. Just adding on to the whole neighborhood concerns. The other thing that I've heard besides the trees is there are still some neighbors who think that there's going to be a driveway out to Sleeper, which that's not the plan. I keep telling them that's not the plan, but that's something we need to communicate more clearly to the neighbors because they're concerned about it. They're also, for some reason, freaked out by the orange stakes that are showing the edge of the sculpture park parcel. For some reason, they think that means you're going to cut down all the trees between the police station and those orange stakes. So clearly, we need to do a little better communication with the neighbors about what those mean.
Yeah, I know that we've spoken to the direct neighbor there, and the orange stakes, for everybody's edification, is just part of the land survey that we did to map out the land, so it's.
Oh, I'm aware. I just
Yeah.
think that the neighbors are seeing those and jumping to conclusions.
Mike, you've been over there.
I've spoken to everyone on that side of Sleeper.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll take an opportunity over the next few weeks to get out there again and just reiterate what the stakes are there and
Paul, can I suggest maybe an on-site meeting with the neighbors?
Sure. Absolutely.
To answer any of those questions that they may have regarding this, that, and the other.
Paul, when you mention, excuse me, the grove of trees, is that, if you're standing in front of the sculpture park, it's behind the grassy section of the sculpture park? Is
Yes,
that the grove?
primarily there, but also in the back of the police parking lot, I guess there are a few trees between some of the neighbors on Briarwood, on that end of Briarwood as well, so. All those folks are strongly supported, but they just want to try to, they don't want to look at the back of the police station, is essentially the feedback we get in summary.
And there are pine trees along the side of the police station, but those are pretty close to the building, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those are some of the ones that where we may be infringing upon. But like I say, the goal is to maintain as much of that tree cover as we can to provide just separation for the neighbors.
So I understand there's a web page for the new station on the police, so I think as we progress the drawings, we can provide updates on the web page and you just mentioned, eventually having an abutters meeting where we can invite the local neighbors to see the current site plan and development and if there's renderings available that time and just hear their concerns and questions.
Mike?
Just a quick question. What part of the process do we look at the sustainability options of the police station? It was stressed to us that we look at all options on whatever we're going to do, and I just wonder when does that come into play?
Are there any net zero requirements or net ready requirements for the project?
There were no LEED or net zero requirements placed on the project. What we typically do is we will take advantage of anything that is kind of, for the lack of a better term, low-hanging fruit. We will do LED lights, we'll do high efficiency boilers, we will do motion occupancy sensors in the building, we'll do light meters, all of those types of measures. The building by code is required to have the structural capability to put photovoltaics or solar panels on the roof as part of the building. There was no edict to put that on at this point, but the structure will be sufficient to be able to put that on if that is a separate endeavor that wants to kind of dovetail with this project going forward, so that it's all ready when the building is occupiable. But I don't-
Kevin, I think it's fair to say that during the design, we'll look at the opportunity for PV or even geothermal
Yeah.
site beside it. That's where we'll be able to explore those options. They're not in the project per se, but that's the time when we can explore those.
Okay,
Potentially an add deduct in the design, right?
Yeah.
thank you.
I just have one more, and I just want to throw in there that if you guys can just let us know what the opportune time to have our facilities department involved in it too, just in terms of the mechanical systems. They will have to maintain this after this thing is all done, so we like them to have a seat at the table when we're discussing some of those systems, just to make sure that, if they have a preference one way or the other, they could provide some input on those things.
Yeah, what we did during this, for the cost estimating of the project during the study phase, we had 3 different systems proposed for mechanical systems. We had kind of a good, better, best. Best being the geothermal. Good would be like a VAV or just an all-air system, and then the middle would be a hydronic VRF system, which uses hot water to do a lot of the heating for the building. We chose to go with the middle of the road. The cost of the geothermal, I think, if I remember correctly, was somewhere around a $2 million premium to do. We were trying to be budget conscious during the study phase and establishing what the tolerance for the cost of the project would be for the town. So we kind of said that's a nice to have, but it's not a have to have. So we didn't put that in, and if that ends up being something that comes back into play, if things work out just right, maybe we just do it as an ad alternate and get a price to do it that we don't have to go forward with. So we've kind of built in a better system, not necessarily the best system from a financial responsibility standpoint.
Are there any kind of subsidies or grant programs or things that I know that with the Fox Hill School, that they are getting grant additional opportunities for their geothermal. So I don't know if there are any state programs available for those type of green building codes or, greening the building that could be financially prudent.
Yeah, I don't know specifically about that. I do know that we will be applying to the utility companies for any rebates associated with having the LED lights, the high-efficiency boilers, the low-volume plumbing fixtures, all of those types of things. Us and our engineers are very well versed in getting those things in front of them to try and get rebates on the actual usage charges going forward. I'm not aware of many grants for them for this type of a project, but we'll take a look at that.
Any other, Mike?
I was just in Somerville yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and I was talking to somebody, and there's a new set of mandates that happen for any project after July 1st in terms of like heating efficiency and green stuff. And I don't know if that's a town-by-town mandate or if that's state, but do we know anything like that that could be coming along that could impact requirements for this project?
Yeah, I believe it's a EPA regulation that actually came out, that each of the states is through their code process, is evaluating that and moving forward. I know it's bitten me on a project currently that I'm working on where the mechanical units for a firing range had a fairly substantial increase in cost because of the change in the fluids that are now only allowed in the mechanical cooling systems. We're getting hit with it because the manufacturer changed. We would still be permitting it under the current codes, which don't require it, but because the manufacturer is changing over and the lead times, it was an impact to us. So we're aware of those types of things that are coming down the road from energy conservation and EPA type issues,
Yeah.
and we'll design accordingly.
Okay, yeah, I think it was like gonna add 15% to the cost for like renovating a house or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
So this is Tom Gazunas from CHA, and just jumping in here. The state recently adopted the 10th edition of the state building code. That was done in May of 2024. So we need to make sure that anything prior, any plans, et cetera, that were developed are going to be updated. I'm sure they will be, but just putting it on the table because the energy code also applies.
Yes, and I know Burlington is a member of the stretch code. They've
Right.
the stretch code requirements, which
Now, the fact that this project was planned and worked on prior to July 1st, is there any help through grandfathering any of this so that we don't have to meet that 10 or 15% increase in cost?
Unfortunately, I can tell you that the answer to that question is no. We need to meet with the building commissioner to confirm it, but the state sets the requirement at when the permit, the actual building permit, was applied for.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Anything else around the room? All right, next thing on the agenda was historic preservation. And I think at one of our meetings, we designated maybe Mike and Kathy to work with the Historical Commission. I know Wayne's not an official member, but you're going to work with the Historical Commission to come out with some ideas as to how we could commemorate the building within our new facility, whether that's within the lobby or whether it's in conference rooms, but some different various ways to utilize some of the existing wood. I know there's a lot of ideas thrown out there as to how we could commemorate the building that's coming down. And I thought, maybe, Mike, did I just volunteer you?
I'm gonna say,
I thought it was you.
I must have missed that.
I think he volunteered last time.
Voted unanimously.
Okay, voluntold on that one, okay.
Second.
So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that we want to commemorate the building that's coming down as well as
Okay.
part of this.
Yep.
So if there's any creative thoughts or ideas, and I'm sure the Historic Commission can come up with a few as well. And
Okay.
I'm sure the architects and CHA have seen similar type work done on different projects. But I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that aspect of it and think about it at the beginning as opposed to the end as we get there, so.
Okay.
$100 budget that goes along with it.
Yes.
Can you save the rock in the basement? Have you seen the rock in the basement that I'm talking about? Can you save that?
We drain right to the house. Down when you
I
go
mean,
into-
back in the 1800s, you couldn't move it.
Down by where the boiler room is, there's a rock basically built right into the wall. I can bring you back and show it.
Yeah.
We bring it to Wayne's house?
I'm sure it's probably going to be in the way of the new construction, so with modern earth-moving equipment, we'll probably be able to get it out of there. But if there's a desire to roll it someplace else and make it a permanent,
A landscape element.
yeah.
I mean, this thing has got to be at least 10 feet around, if not.
Is it rock or is it ledge?
I haven't been able to find that out because back in the 1800s, they couldn't touch it. And that's why it's been sitting there now since that time frame.
Get a shovel and get over there. Waiting for it.
I got enough you-know-what against me already. So anyway, anybody that doesn't know me, hasn't seen me in 25 years, I'm Wayne Higdon. I've been involved with the town, one way, shape, form, or another, since 1949 when we moved in. So I was a student in that school. I'm working with the Historical Commission now, getting them through different aspects of history in the town. So that, like I say, I did the first grade, the fourth grade, the eighth grade. By the time I got to the 12th grade, they had a new high school. So, but I know some of the people have been around town, have known me for 25 years or plus, and I ain't going anywhere yet. So, anyway, when I saw the agenda item, and it said, you know, keeping track of the artifacts type of, you know, situation, as you heard, there's a lot of ideas floating around whether to incorporate some of the wood structure, whether it be the paneling. I don't know how much was taken down when the station was added to the back end of it. I look at you, Bob, because you were in there at that point. Whether we can save some of that, because there's been talk about creating miniature buildings within it that exist historically, using some of that wood. There was some discussion about maybe using some of the wood in the, what do you want to call it, conference room, training room that's on the, you know, the plans, and then have something, you know, going along with that. So, I mean,
We're open to
yeah,
all
it's,
your ideas.
well, we're in the same mode, Paul. We're open to suggestions. You know, it's been around for so many years. It's causing a lot of controversy with former students, residents, and everything else. You know, it's change. So that,
We'll be having Mike and Kathy come over and spend a lot of time with you guys to try to come up with a
I
list.
know,
of
I'm still waiting to find out, did your archivist ever get into to the mechanics of that, or the structure of that? Because I'd love to find out whether that's post and beam or stick-built, for one thing.
I don't know that we did, no. We didn't do an awful lot of study of how the structure, whether it's balloon, platform, or
Knowing that it used to be a bunch of classrooms on the second floor, and now it's wide open, makes me think that whatever it was designed to be flexible.
Yeah.
You know, plus the additions that were put on when we put indoor plumbing in and things of that nature. So it's got the history as far as that goes. And it is on the state register of historical sites. It still has its own serial number and everything else, too. So that it didn't make it to the national level for whatever reason. I wasn't involved.
If I could add, Dr. Ed Weiner and Bill Byer are specialists in rocks.
Literally.
They belong to a organization and took my grandson to a dig a couple of weeks ago. So they just may, you know, bring them in and have them look at it or whatever they do and tell you if it's what it's worth or how old it is. And
Yeah?
but they got my grandson hooked on rocks.
Thank you, Wayne. So I guess with that, we have questions and comments, and then we can wrap it up. Just about 1 o'clock, so made good time today. Anything else? All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.